Beloved, mighty, I am presence in the heart of God in the great central sun. We salute thee, Lord God Almighty, beloved Alpha and Omega. O thou cosmic Christ consciousness in the hearts of the sons of God everywhere. Illumine this planetary body, illumine the souls of light. Let them become blazing suns, a tribute unto the Buddha, the Lord of the world Gautama, a tribute unto Sanat Kumara, Lord Maitreya, Lord Jesus Christ. O hosts of the Lord, come into this temple this day. Let us draw the lines of white fire. Let us make the mark of the fiery destiny of the sons of God on earth. Let us do something to dispel the burden of our people upon this earth. By thy word, O God, come into this temple of being. By the power of the 7 mighty rainbow rays, by the power of the 7 Elohim and the 5 secret rays in the white fire core of being, we summon thee, O Lord, for the transformation of worlds. Elohim, reinforce thy service upon this altar, and let thy word go forth. We ignite these flames as love tokens of the sacred fire and of the threefold flame that burns upon the altar of our hearts. Let the flames that burn in our home of beloved Alpha and Omega now charge these flames and be one with them. Let our heart now amplify and be one with the heart of Shambhala, the heart of community. O threefold flame of Shambhala, now be one with a threefold flame in our hearts. Expand and amplify and multiply the action of that flame in this mighty hour of world liberation. In the name I am that I am, we invoke the tube of light, not only for ourselves and this sanctuary, but unto all keepers of the flame worlds without end, around every cupbearer of the light of the cosmic Virgin. Let them be sealed in violet flame in the mighty tube of light, in the blue lightning of divine love, of the mighty Buddha, of the lapis lazuli. We call unto the great healing Buddha. Healing Buddha, come forth from the very heart of Gautama. Let there be the healing of this planetary body in the name of the cosmic cross of white fire, in the name of the Bethlehem star and our own causal body. We draw forth the light. We call forth this mighty tube of light from the great central sun for the sealing of our temple, that the Buddhas may enter here, may descend the chute, even the sine wave of our own crystal cord, and abide with us. Oh, abide with us, Buddhas, in winter, in the white fire core of this season, and in the dark night of the Kali Yuga. O Buddhas of the great central sun, by our love, by our intense love, we send forth the signal, come forth, and now assist all sentient life unto God realization. Together. Oh my God, I am I am everything on in the day, I am God present on every right now today. Keep it in there, everybody, everything, God, me to life. With nothing, everything, and every best. Hey, to the middle, Good morning, beloved keepers of the flame. In the name of the mighty Buddhas of the sacred fire, let us give that most wondrous prayer, the keeper's daily prayer. Let us take our books and be seated. Decree number 1. We are meditating upon the threefold flame within our hearts, with the purest love for the Almighty, for this gift of God's self-awareness. We have come together in this communion of hearts, our retreat of the Buddhas in winter, to determine, by all the love of which we are made, to expand this sacred fire, to illumine a world, to heal its people, to raise up the consciousness of the people into the very heart of the Buddha and the Christ, for all else is vanity. Let us then expand this mighty fire by the intensity of our desire, which is God's desire in us, to be God. Together. A flame is active, a flame is vital, a flame is eternal. I am a God flame of radiant love from the very heart of God in the great central sun, descending from the Master of Life. I am charged now with beloved Helios and Vestus, Supreme God Consciousness and Solar Awareness. Pilgrim upon earth, I am walking daily the way of the ascended Master's victory that leads to my eternal freedom by the power of the sacred fire this day and always, continually made manifest in my thoughts, feelings, and immediate awareness, transcending and transmuting all the elements of earth within my 4 lower bodies, and freeing me by the power of the sacred fire from those misqualified foci of energy within my being. I am set free right now from all that binds by and through the currents of the divine flame of the sacred fire itself, whose ascending action makes me God in manifestation, God in action, God by direction, and God in consciousness. I am an active flame, I am a vital flame, I am an eternal flame, I am an expanding fire spark from the great central sun, drawing to me now every ray of divine energy which I need, and which can never be requalified by the human, and flooding me with the light and God illumination of 1,000 suns, to take dominion and rule supreme forever everywhere I am. Where I am, there God is also, unseparated forever I remain, increasing my light by the smile of his radiance, the fullness of his love, the omniscience of his wisdom, and the power of his life eternal, which automatically raises me on ascension's wings of victory, that shall return me to the heart of God, from whence in truth I am come to do God's will and manifest abundant life to all. We call for the mighty flame of cosmic Christ illumination. We call for the expansion of that flame around this world. We call for the amplification of that mighty fire of wisdom within these hearts. O mighty flame of Shambhala, come forth. Gautama Buddha, beloved Lord Maitreya, beloved Lord Jesus Christ and Kuthumi, Bodhisattvas, saints and disciples, devotees of the living word of the Buddha and of the cosmic Christ and of the cosmic Virgin, we salute thee, we summon thee now. Place the mighty electronic presence of the Buddha over each and every one of these devotees. Beloved Guru Padmasambhava, come forth in the infinite light now, and by cosmic Christ illumination, let there be a penetration of the veils of ignorance. Let there be a penetration now of the veils of ignorance. Let there be the consuming of darkness. Let there be consumed now all density, especially around the chakras of the light bearers of this planet, I demand they be cut free by the mighty sword of the Buddha, by the mighty sword of the Mahakali. Beloved flame of the great central sun, we stand and we are determined to peel back the very density of ignorance and malice, animosity, and all hate and hate creation directed against our beloved Saint Germain, the manifest one of the Aquarian age. In his flame and in his name, we invoke now the full power of illumination's light for the victory of the great central sun on earth as in heaven. Let it be done, O God. Let this mission of our coming, bearing the flame of illumination, be fulfilled, and let us ascend only when it is fulfilled. Beloved God and Goddess Meru, come now to our hearts, illumine the pathway before us, and without question, definitely without question, consume within us, by our leave and by our vow, all human selfishness and self-concern, all pettiness and sense of injustice. Burn through, O Jophiel and Christine. Let the cosmic Christ action now burn through the carnal mind and its mentality and all mortality, and let these souls of light manifest the divine presence. Let them see the mighty view of cosmos. Let them stand on the summit of being, on the very summit of Zion now. Let them behold the infinite. Let them behold the stars of God as the causal body of his sons. Let them behold by co-measurement their place in cosmos against the backdrop of the infinite. Lord God Almighty, enter our hearts and give us the illumined vision for action in this year now dawning as the great hope and love and joy of our Mother Vesta, bringing to us now the revelation on the cosmic screen of a new dawn of the golden pink glow ray, and another opportunity to bring light to all who are our brothers and sisters on the path. O children of the Most High God, hear the call of the World Mother. The World Mother summons thee from all lethargy and preoccupation in the human consciousness. Come apart now and be a separate generation of light for the deliverance of worlds. We decree it in the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara. Let us take together our wonderful call to illumination. The first yellow decree. By your love, beloved ones, and by your fiat, you can intensify the action of the science of the spoken word. You are the one that has the power to accelerate, to intensify. You can be anything you want to be as long as it is lawful in the will of God. But you must pour the concentrate of an undivided desire into the very heart of God. You must be the magnet. The mere recitation of the words is not the point. These words are cups. You must fill them with your desire, your determination, and your love. You are the generator that brings forth this cosmic action. Let us see what we can do now in the understanding that we are God. We are God's awareness of himself. We will determine just how much we will send forth, how loud will be the call, and therefore how full will be the echo and the return. It's all up to you individually on the path of the ascended masters, what you take from this communion and what you do with it. It is all between your soul, your free will, your heart's fire. Let us understand how key is the individual in the decision to be a God-free being. Together, in the name of the beloved, mighty, victorious presence of Almighty God, I am in me, my very own beloved holy Christ self and holy Christ selves of all mankind. By and through the magnetic power of the immortal, victorious, threefold flame of love, wisdom, and power anchored within my heart, I invoke the golden flame of illumination from the heart of God and the great central sun, from beloved Lanto and Confucius and the brotherhood of the royal Chiton, from beloved Lord Maitreya and Kuthumi and the brothers of the golden robe in Kashmir, from beloved Himalaya and all who serve in the retreat of the blue lotus, from beloved God and Goddess Meru and all who serve in the temple of illumination, from beloved mighty Cosmos, beloved mighty Cassiopeia, and beloved Archangel Jophiel, beloved Lanello, the entire spirit of the great white brotherhood and the world mother, elemental life, fire, air, water, and earth, to blaze forth throughout my four lower bodies, the earth, the elementals, and all mankind, to rend the veil of ignorance and establish the I am law of life through the mercury diamond shining mind of God, consciously expanded right now through this my decree. Living Christ within and round me, blazing illumination flame, wise abundance now surround me, God dominion ever reign. Crown my brow with golden radiance from the wisdom of thy light. Crown my doings with the evidence of illumination's Christed might. I am the golden flame of illumination blazing clear from the heart of blessed Lanto in the royal Teton here. Blaze, oh blaze, thy shining radiance through my inner being now. Shed true light upon my pathway by a beam from wisdom's brow. Light expand up to encircle every nook upon our globe. Come bring every man your blessing, brothers of the golden robe. Living Christ now all about me, blaze with all thy wisdom's power. Thy truth blazing, none can doubt me, expanding in me every hour. Crown my heart and mind with fire, kindled on thy altars bright. Let a halo of thy wisdom honor every child of light. Hail thou holy royal Teton, brothers of the wisdom ray. Intensify thy golden radiance, let the sun of light hold sway. Come Cassiopeia, Elohim, give wisdom to perceive the perfect pattern for each life, its way and means to weave. Blessed Jophiel, Archangel, there set forth on wisdom's page the edict that will usher in the coming golden age. Living Christ within and round me, blazing illumination flame, wise abundance now surround me, God dominion never reign. Crown my brow with golden radiance from the wisdom of thy light. Crown my doings with the evidence of illumination's Christed light. I am the golden flame of illumination blazing clear from the heart of blessed Lanto in the royal Teton here. Blaze, oh blaze, thy shining radiance through my inner being now. Shed true light upon my pathway by a beam from wisdom's brow. Light expand up to encircle every nook upon our globe. Come bring every man your blessing, brothers of the golden robe. Living Christ now all about me, blaze with all thy wisdom's power. Thy truth blazing, none can doubt me, expanding in me every hour. Crown my heart and mind with fire, kindled on thy altars bright. Let a halo of thy wisdom honor every child of light. Hail thou holy royal Teton, brothers of the wisdom ray, intensify thy golden radiance, let the sun of light hold sway. Come Cassiopeia, Elohim, give wisdom to perceive the perfect pattern for each life, its way and means to weave. Blessed Jophiel, Archangel, there set forth on wisdom's page the edict that will usher in the coming golden age. Living Christ within and around me, blazing illumination flame, wise abundance now surround me, God dominion never reign. Crown my brow with golden radiance from the wisdom of thy light. Crown my doings with the evidence of illumination's Christed might. I am the golden flame of illumination blazing clear from the heart of blessed Lanto in the royal Teton here. Blaze, oh blaze, thy shining radiance through my inner being. Light expanded to encircle every nook upon our globe. Come bring every man your blessing, brothers of the golden robe. Living Christ now all about me, blaze with all thy wisdom's power. Thy truth blazing, none can doubt me, expanding in me every hour. Crown my heart and mind with fire, kindled on thy holy heart. Let a halo of thy wisdom honor every child of light. Hail thou holy royal Teton, brothers of the wisdom ray. Intensify thy golden radiance, let the sun of light hold sway. Crown Cassiopeia, Elohim, give wisdom to perceive the perfect pattern for each life, its way and means to lead. Blessed Jophiel, Archangel, be set forth on mission's page the edict that will usher in the coming golden age. And in full faith I consciously accept this manifest. And in full faith I consciously accept this manifest. And in full faith I consciously accept this manifest. Right here and now, with full power, eternal sustaining all power here, ever expanding the world and the world of all our holiness and light and free. Beloved I am, beloved I am, beloved I am.
The Buddhas have summoned us on an urgent note. You have come because they have called. Some of you have come to spend 3 months with the Buddhas. We are not here to teach the traditional teachings of Buddhism any more than we are here to teach the traditional teachings of Christianity. These are self-evident. Books may be secured, and you may establish your foundations in Buddhism or in Christianity through the texts that are more than 2,000 years old. We come in a very vital moment in the age of the Buddhas to hear their current message and to understand the path of the Buddha with a practical realism as to what is happening in the here and now. America is the land where the Buddha must come into preeminence. Our own founding father, George Washington, attained by the flame of his art, by the flame of his heart, to the path of the Buddha. And our Lunello gives to us the crown, the finishing of that which was begun by Godfrey. And so, as we invoke illumination, and the answer to our call is immediate, we are concerned with action. When the light goes forth from our hearts, what does it contact? What does it press against? The light of illumination is the flame of the Buddhic mind. Therefore, it comes in contact immediately with its antithesis within ourselves and within this planetary body. Immediately we are face to face with the initiation of why we have been embodying upon earth. What is our karma? What have we left to do to realize to the fullness of the cup of life the path of Buddhahood? Last night we went over with the fingers of our minds the ancient vows we have taken. We realize that we are in the full swing of the path of the Buddha with the teachings of the ascended masters already given. We have a great burden upon us. I have a great burden of light. It is the burden of the Lord's teaching, and to publish it. And in its publishing, all of us will know more and more about this path. We see the ray go forth, and we see the block of the intensity of the rocks of darkness. We see what is blocking the ship of Maitreya. And we have an urgent message from the Darjeeling Council and the Council of the Royal Teton that unless we bring certain illumination on a consciousness which is coming over America like a dark hand, the path of the Buddha and of the Christ will no longer be self-evident. Some of you may have taken note, as I have, the Time magazine, which every year awards the award of Man of the Year, gave that award this year to the home computer. It is now no longer Man of the Year, it is the Machine of the Year. We can always say, well, these are the trends of the times, they are harmless. But in fact, they are not harmless. For a long time, people have been thinking about creating mechanization man, not only in the recent century, but for millions of years. We know there was the creation of life on Atlantis by the fallen ones and the Nephilim, and long before Atlantis and the crossbreeding of animal and human life, there was the creation of mechanization man by the Nephilim gods. And we must keep on going back and realize that if when the Nephilim arrived in their spaceships, they had Homo erectus on Earth to modify and produce Homo sapien, that Homo erectus himself had to have been created, and all of the forms prior to that. So we can see that genetic engineering, as the vain imitation of the path of the Buddha, has been ongoing for millions of years in this matter cosmos. In this year, 1982, there have been some startling turns in the road of the thinking of our people. One single movie, E.T., has produced a revolution of sympathy for extraterrestrials, a replacement of Jesus Christ by a robot who resurrects and descends back to heaven whence he came. We see that science has made such achievements that instead of people waiting for the coming of the Son of God, they are waiting for the coming of the perfect human. And the wedding of the human with the machine is just on the horizon. It is the fulfillment of the prophecy of the great divine director through Mark Prophet, that we should see the day when mankind would actually contemplate the mechanical ascension. There is an anti-path of the anti-Buddha and anti-Christ. It is a spirit, and it is indeed a dark hand over this land. I must review with you some of the highlights and the low points of this gradual drift of mankind's consciousness, their curiosity with the astral plane, and the endless creations that can come forth through the mastery of genetic engineering. The goal of creating a robot can only ensue in man replacing himself, man creating that which will go beyond his own evolutionary strain and chain. In other words, what is being created in this day has the promise of eliminating the necessity for the entire race of the sons and daughters of God. It is a race, an intense race of the fallen ones to create efficiently mechanization man that outdoes the sons of God. They are not merely interested in improving the human species or making a perfect human which will be a god, but it is a competitive race that says, by stealing the science of the mother, we can create better and bigger. We can outstrip the sons of God and therefore take dominion in matter. It is the ultimate revenge. And what we are about to review will show us where we must place our attention, past, present, and future, on the records of this horrendous misuse of the life force that has sunk continents, destroyed planets, and deprived the sons of God of the path of the ascension for millions of years. You must consider that you may be sitting here today instead of ascended in the light and free because of genetic manipulation to limit your capacity to contain God. You may be here today because of the deterring factor of this one interference with life alone, the creation of mechanization man. We are going to be reviewing this morning some films that have been made this year and in the past. What are their psychological ramifications in this day and our own attitude toward the new science? You may be surprised to learn that the first film on robots was made in 1897. It was called Gugusi and the Automaton by George Méliès. 1910 saw the beginning of Frankenstein. 1914 was a film, Der Golem. The golem is the creation in Jewish lore of a mechanization man within the ghettos of Europe, supposedly to spy on the Christians who were supposedly killing the Jews. This film, Der Golem, by Paul Wegener, was released then in 1914. In 1916, there was a film, Homunculus, a 6-part serial based on the novel by Robert Reinert. In 1918, there was a film, All Round, first of several film versions of the book by Hans Heinz Evers. 1920, again, Der Golem. 1926, Metropolis. 1931, Frankenstein. 1935, The Bride of Frankenstein. The Soul Marrying the Monster. 1935, Phantom Empire. 1936, Undersea Kingdom. 1939, The Son of Frankenstein. 1944, Dreams That Money Can Buy. It's about a girl with a manufactured heart. 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still. 1951, Captain Video, a serial. 1952, Zombies of the Stratosphere. 1954, Tabor the Great. 1954, Gog, based on the story by Ivan Tors. 1954, Target Earth, From the Deadly City. 1956, Forbidden Planet. 1957, The Invisible Boy. 1968, 2001, A Space Odyssey. George Lucas, 1970, THX 1138. 1971, Silent Running. 1973, Westworld. 1974, Terminal Man. 1976, Logan's Run. 1977, Demon Seed. 1977, Star Wars. You can see that there has been an ongoing fascination with robots. As a matter of fact, a simple washing machine, a simple toaster, anything that performs for us is the beginning of the robotic creation. And there is nothing wrong with using science and technology to relieve the drudgery of life on Earth. There comes a place where the line must be drawn, and it's the place where the individual begins to feel inferior to his own servant, the machine itself. The place where he desires to unite with it, where he lusts after the superior mind, the psychic ability of the robot consciousness, and therefore allows himself to then be ruled by the robot creation. The proverbial "let George do it" is let the robot do it. There is a slothfulness and a laziness on the part of the sons of God, so ready to abdicate their threefold flame and let the machine perform what he must perform in order to exercise and expand spiritual potential. Let us study then a selection of these motion pictures that has appeared in this very year. Let us look at art in the motion picture industry as the great imitator of life. I'm sure that last summer will be remembered as the summer of movies. Millions exchanged $5 bills for a few hours of fantasy. 3 of the most important films, E.T., The Extraterrestrial, Blade Runner, and Tron, each give us a vision of the future, someone's vision of the future. And the impact that they make is due in part to the fact that each fantasy is confined to the realm of conceivable scientific knowledge and technical invention. The fact that it is conceivable allows people to open the lens of the third eye, take it all in, therefore having it recorded in the etheric body and the etheric plane. And each person who has an acceptance of what he is seeing on film therefore becomes a generator to bring into manifestation by the real eye magic of God what is projected as our mechanical, technological future. By playing upon the minds of laggards in the movie industry who have created these films, the extraterrestrials themselves, the fallen ones, the powers that be on the astral and physical plane, therefore may create by image, on film, exactly what they need to alter the state of consciousness of practically an entire planet. The power of real eye magic, which you have and contain within your third eye, is the ultimate power to create. And because people do not understand they are co-creators with God, their creative power is being used by those who have been cut off from God, who no longer have access to His light to create. And so they use the people of God in their ignorance to become living, human, and spiritual generators of their designs. Unless the individual has considerable mastery in watching these films and closing the chakras, there is almost an automatic process of the recording in the subconscious, especially through the vibration of sympathy for the individuals on the film. The desire, the sympathy, the recording, the image that remains becomes that which grinds out day by day the showing forth upon the screen of nature of that which we are shown on these films. It will take not only the violet flame and illumination to erase the harm that has been done, but it will also take the judgment calls to challenge and expose those who are the great mind manipulators of the centuries. They did it on Atlantis, and in civilizations of which there are no longer any record on this planet and others. We're seeing it again, and we have to weigh individually and personally in our lives just what price we are having to pay and how much of a setback we personally are experiencing and the planet is experiencing to the divine plan because of this infiltration, this sliding into the lens of the collective human consciousness of images that are calculated to destroy. Images that are calculated to link the humanity of Earth with the same Nephilim gods that genetically engineered their particular strains long, long ago. One can feel and see that they are returning now to use this creation to other designs and purposes. Just as the mighty Elohim and Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras come to initiate humanity in a 10,000-year cycle of the activation of the crown chakra, so there is that diversion to hook the chakras into the space computers of the spacecraft. Let us see then with our own eyes what is being done. Art, it is said, imitates life. But art also anticipates the future. In fact, it may even direct the future. What the artist does in many cases is interpret the unconscious in a form that makes it a concrete reality. Thus, in our time, it has been said that life itself imitates art. All people upon earth have subconscious records of previous interaction with extraterrestrials. Therefore, the memory being there, yet great fear surrounding that memory, the films give to us an easy way to accept through fantasy what is troubling us in the deepest, innermost recesses of our being. One of the most potent art forms of the 20th century, the motion picture, has given art an even greater semblance of reality. For some faced with the uncertainties of war, economic collapse, or personal dissatisfaction, Hollywood presents a desirable alternative to their daily existence. Recent scientific studies on the effects of television have found that avid viewers willingly suspend disbelief over what is paraded across the screen. In fact, many of them believe that what they see is more real than what they experience. This is clearly the crossing of a line when art and entertainment become more real than one's daily life, when individuals escape into the astral plane through the television set to experience that which is stimulating to the nerve centers. The nerves in the body continually stimulated with a heightened and intense assault that we have on television and motion pictures. We're no longer satisfied with an ordinary, peaceful existence. And therefore, these escapes into another reality become an addiction in themselves, like sugar, like nicotine, like alcohol, like drugs. They are an acceleration of awareness through the rushing of astral energy, through the rushing of the adrenaline in the excitement that is created. And therefore, one feels a greater reality because there's a greater intensity of emotion than one normally finds in day-to-day existence. The continual entering into the astral plane through these movies, you can see, takes the individual away from the clear probe into the etheric octave and the real dimensions of our inner reality. And so we find a sugar lollipop is given to the people to distract them from the divine nectar released through the pituitary and the pineal. The real inner nectar that is the opening of the crown chakra. The omniscience of a cosmos is sought by alternative methods. Christ said, "I am the open door. No man can enter except by me. No one can go through another door, but only through Christ can we attain to the light of the I Am Presence." This means we cannot take the route of mechanization man or the astral plane or the psychic, deviant methods for a heightened and exalted, although temporary, self-awareness. Unless we go through the Christ consciousness, nothing we do bears any bearing upon the realization of the goal of the Buddha. The enormous distractions that are upon us are almost frightening. Suffice it to say that they are of great concern to the Buddhas and to the councils of the Brotherhood. The fantasies that come across to us in the motion picture industry, though considered mere entertainment, are written with our subconscious in mind, very clearly, very definitely on the drawing boards. And it is in the intent of the producers and the writers that the impact of these films permanently alter our way of life. Ben Brady, a 12-year veteran of the television and film industry, discusses the importance of playing to the audience's unconscious guilt in his book, The Keys to Writing for Television and Film. Fantasy, he writes, is every individual's attempt to deal with the anguish that lies smoldering in his subconscious mind. Brady uses Freudian psychology to explain that hidden forces within the subconscious of the audience are trying to compensate for their internal guilts, and through the medium of filmed fantasy are able to find at least temporary reconciliation. Brady notes that no one will admit to their unconscious guilts because of a deep sense of shame for their actions. Thus, when they fantasize, Brady writes, they call it entertainment, pretending that it is a mere pastime. He says, but subconsciously they are secretly seeking to accept the story as their own by identifying themselves with the problem and the characters in it. And it is this secret acceptance of the character struggle as the viewer's own that is the key to the reality of drama. Brady's thesis is that unless the dramatist appeals to the subconscious, especially the guilt of his audience, and succeeds in creating a character in which they can identify, he will never write a successful play. His conclusion is, a play, therefore, is a palliative that a playwright administers to an audience for the express purpose of relieving their unconscious guilts. With this sophisticated psychology in mind, we can ask ourselves what subconscious guilt could be assuaged by watching Blade Runner, a cops and robbers tale set in the 21st century involving human replicants, or E.T., the story of a small boy and his extraterrestrial, or Tron, a series of life and death struggles inside the world of a giant computer system. We must ask ourselves, could it be that each film in its own way probes to the depths of the subconscious, contacting a very ancient race memory of this planet? Does the audience harbor in the subconscious recesses of their minds unconscious guilt for participation in the creation of tailor-made men, for contact with reptilian extraterrestrials, or for submitting to a world run by the artificial intelligence of advanced computers? Perhaps the guilt is a very intimate guilt of crossing the line of the forbidden fruit, of intermarriage with the robot creation, of intercourse with fallen angels, of allowing oneself to be used to bring forth the half-man, half-animal creations, allowing one's body to be used for the experimentation that was highly in vogue on Atlantis. Everyone did it. Men and women offered their bodies for scientific research. Can the guilt be that the soul recognizes that it has accepted a replacement for the I Am Presence, for the Christ Self, and for the twin flame? Not only guilt, but an endless pain that results from the karma of such an act. The long, long, long dark night of separation from intimate communion with the Christ Self and the I Am Presence, from the perfect love of the twin flame. Man has been manipulated into ultimate degradations by the fallen ones. These degradations being so mortifying to the soul, they engender guilt, a guilt from which the soul cannot find release except through the Word incarnate, through the living Christ, through hearing the voice of the Mother, hearing the voice of Maitreya. Thy sins be forgiven thee, go in peace. Everyone upon the planet longs to know and hear, if he is a light bearer, that all of the stain of contact with this mechanization man creation can indeed be transmuted by the blood of Christ, by eating his flesh, drinking his blood, partaking of the Alpha Omega light. That indeed God is able and willing to forgive, that there is a way out of the staining of our bodies, tattooed with the markings of the Nephilim creation, tattooed even at the microscopic level of the DNA. We are victims because of guilt. This is an astounding revelation. And the ones who know it are the ones who engendered that guilt all the way back to the serpent's temptation of the mother in the garden. This temptation has been faced by all sons of God. And most people evolving upon earth today have in some way soiled their garment by some acceptance into their world of the easier path offered by the prince of darkness. There is an easier way. This is always their theme. But the easier way is the bypassing of the striving of the Son of God. All of these films and all we will review today will show the easier way, the broad way that leadeth to the self-destruction of the light. Before we examine the content of these three films, let us look at the legacy of fact and fiction that produced these particular statements on the future. Mythology is the meeting ground for fact and fantasy. Within its boundaries, man is free to speculate about the mysteries of life. And one of the oldest beliefs found in the body of ancient planetary lore is that man himself was the first synthetic creation. Along with guilt is the anxiety and the fear. Am I the synthetic creation? The desire to know, the fear at having to face such a possibility. And of course that fear exists because people think that they are their flesh and blood vehicle. You really are not that vehicle, you are the soul within it. And therefore, it doesn't matter whether the vehicle is a Ford or a VW or a Toyota or a Cadillac. It becomes academic because all flesh is subject to disintegration. What is important is what is the stuff of which your consciousness is made. There has been so much programming and manipulation of the races of earth that we do not look for the perfect flesh and blood being to define the avatar. We look for the eternal spirit, and we know that it can use any body, yours or mine, to bring forth reality. And therefore we do not dwell on the origins of the form we wear. We dwell upon the spiritual evolution of the soul. Let us say that all are Homo sapiens. Let us consider then how some have excelled to tremendous manifestations of God consciousness, and others have remained at the lowest level of IQ. Is it the condition of the body? Only in part. The largest determining factor of what you are manifesting now is your attainment in all ages of the Christ consciousness. The body is secondary, and as Mighty Victory said, we beat it into submission. We beat atoms and molecules into submission of the Christ image. The fear, therefore, of union with synthetic man needs to be put into the flame. The guilt must be put into the flame, else all transmutation of that which is above the root will not wipe out the disease or the tares that have been sown. Egyptian mythology records that the god Knefu shaped human beings on his potter's wheel. A Greek legend says that the first humans were robots formed out of clay by the Titan Prometheus. In Persian lore, Ahura Mazda, Lord of Wisdom, formed the first man from his own sweat. We are speaking only of physical man. Only of physical man. The ancient scriptures of the Guatemalan Indians, the Popova, recount how the gods created and destroyed man twice before they produced a prototype that pleased them. The first, men made of clay, washed away in the rain. The second, men of wood, were destroyed by the gods. The few that escaped became the first monkeys. The third, made of flesh and blood, satisfied the gods and became the forerunners of the human race. These myths appear over and over again. Ancient Sumerian creation myths, according to Zechariah Sitchin, reveal that the first man was a genetically engineered cross between Homo erectus and an extraterrestrial called a Nephilim. The book of Genesis tells us that God created man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. The story of that physical creation is thought by some to be the story of creation of Homo sapiens, as opposed to the original creation of etheric man and woman that is recorded in the first chapter of Genesis. As myth gave way to science, man harnessed the forces of nature and created the machine. Man then began to toy with the idea of creating a mechanical man. What was once thought the sole province of the gods became for man a theoretical probability. The word robot, as some of you know, was coined by Karel Čapek, a Czechoslovakian dramatist, in 1917, and achieved notoriety in his 1921 play RUR, standing for Rossum's Universal Robots. Čapek derived robot from the Czech word robota, meaning forced labor, and used it as the name for a mechanical apparatus that did the work of a man. The word has since been attached to any such apparatus as well as to persons whose work or activities appear mechanical. The robots in Čapek's drama look and behave like humans, and they work twice as hard. But there's an important difference. The robots have no feelings and no souls. In the course of the play, the robots do all the world's work. Then they wage all the world's wars, and finally they rebel and destroy their creators. You are not as strong as the robots. You are not as skillful as the robots, says the leader of the rebellion to the humans. I want to be master. We find that robots, increasing in intelligence and capacity, will always rise up to destroy their creator because they hate their creator who made them. They wish they had never been born because without a threefold flame, there is no ultimate point to their existence. You will find then that this hatred is the core of a robot creation because it is the very core of the reason that the Creator created the robot. Hatred for Almighty God and His preferential treatment to the sons of God, whereas He cast out of heaven the rebellious angels, and therefore those angels lost their place, lost their opportunity to be co-creators with God. But they took with them what they knew of the science of creation, and they have never stopped trying to create a superior being to man. They do not do so for any benevolent reason. They do only this to get even. The creation of mechanization man is the ultimate revenge of the fallen angels led by Lucifer and Satan against the sons of God. Before the word robot was coined, the word automaton was used to describe any mechanical device that imitated a human or an animal. Android, coming from the Greek andros, meaning man, and eidos, meaning form, was applied to any machine constructed to imitate the appearance and actions of man. Recently, the word android has come to mean robots made of flesh. The first automated or robot devices in history were mechanical toys called automata. Archytas of Tarentum, about 400 to 350 BC, built a wooden pigeon that could fly. And Hero of Alexandria, a 2nd century BC Greek scholar, reportedly constructed birds that chirped, drank, and flew. He is also credited with the construction of an automated theater, complete with tiny robot figures that marched and danced. In the 13th century, St. Albertus Magnus, as legend has it, spent 30 years constructing a servant of deceptively human appearance, out of metal, wood, glass, wax, and leather. The robot, it is said, opened the door, asked visitors what they wanted, and engaged them in polite conversation. Thomas Aquinas, Magnus, famous student, destroyed the creature, believing it to be the work of the devil. In the 15th century, Leonardo da Vinci created an automated lion in honor of Louis XII's visit to Milan. As the king entered the city, the lion walked toward him, stopped, and opened its chest with a claw, revealing the fleur-de-lis coat of arms of France. The fleur-de-lis, of course, symbol of the threefold flame, shows at subconscious level the desire for the robot to have a threefold flame. In fact, to be co-equal with the king. It is like the ploy of Leonardo, placed there in saying, I too can be king. In the 16th century, Rabbi Judah Loew reportedly created a giant robot, or golem, out of clay. The golem came to life when a piece of paper with God's secret name, the Tetragrammaton, was placed in its mouth. The golem supposedly protected the Jews from persecution. Some legends speak of how golems were used by their creators for evil purposes. Others record how these creatures turned on and destroyed their creators. In the 18th century, two Swiss clockmakers, Pierre-Jacques Dreux and his son Henri Louis, created several mechanical men that either wrote, drew, or played musical instruments. Around the same time, a member of the French Academy of Sciences, Jacques de Vaucanson, made a mechanical duck that flapped its wings, drank water, pecked corn, and even dissolved its food. The Industrial Revolution of the 19th century sparked the invention of robot devices to perfect the production of power. The steam and internal combustion engines are two examples. By the mid-20th century, automated machinery could run independently and required no manpower at all. Such technological advancements suggested the theoretical possibility of semi-intelligent robots capable of interaction with humans. In the 1950s and 60s, with the development of cybernetics, the comparative study of the automatic control system of the human nervous system and brain with that of a computer, scientists developed the synthetic robot, a computer simulation model of a human being. Though few robots are android in character, rapid advancements in microcircuitry and computer technology has led to the creation of decision-making robots. Microcircuitry. These types of robots are capable of adapting to changes in environments and of selecting the proper solution to a problem from several alternatives stored in their memory circuits. A common example of such a robot is the traffic control signal. Those traffic systems with the most advanced technology are able to adjust their signals in response to information about the number and timing of vehicles fed from sensors in the road surface. Robots were created to be the servants of man and are dependent upon man for their operation. Each robot is composed of an electronic circuitry of varying degrees of complexity and must be programmed for the specific task it is to perform. As work with artificial intelligence, AI, increases, so does the ability of a robot to process information, to make a decision, and to act accordingly. Industrial robots were created to take the place of human workers in hostile environments. But as robots entered the workforce, it was discovered that they were superior to humans in many ways. For one, a robot can work continuously, whereas a human worker has certain physical limitations. A single robot can do the job of several men. Also, robots don't have unions. They don't talk back, take breaks, or ask for raises. They don't have a sense of self-worth. Economically speaking, a robot can cut costs by replacing expensive hand labor with cheap, dependable machines. They can provide versatility at a predictable cost. Industrial robots accelerate automation so that costs can be kept low. And by boosting productivity, robots are helping U.S. industries to compete in the world market. Almost 5,000 robots are used in U.S. factories today. That figure is up from 1,300 in 1979. A securities analyst, Laura Canigliaro, predicts that by 1990, as many as 120,000 robots may have joined the workforce. This means that 1 million workers in the automotive, electrical equipment, machinery, and fabricated metals industries stand to lose their jobs to steel-collar workers.
I need your deck. This is a bad one, the worst yet.
There was an escape from the off-world colonies 2 weeks ago. 6 replicants, 3 male, 3 female. They slaughtered 20.
A Blade Runner's job is to hunt down replicants. Manufactured humans you can't tell from the real thing.
Robots in human form is the premise of the film The Blade Runner, as it presents us with an image of futuristic society. But androids such as these are still within the realm of science fiction. When we think of robots, the image that most often comes to mind is the mechanical man that looks and acts like a human. But functioning robots, like these, are still not a reality. But robotics is very much a real and growing part of American industry. Essentially, the robot is a mechanical arm, and although it looks more like a serpent than a human, its movements are very similar to the human arm.
They're using robotics for building automobiles. They use them extensively in Japan, and they're upgrading the companies here in this country constantly. And basically for industry, for putting parts together where they don't necessarily have to use people. If it's something that's repetitive, hook it up to a robot and let the robot do it and be able to make more of them faster.
What really controls a robot is a computer, also known as the brain.
Colleges and universities would use robots like this in courses on robotics, and companies would use a robot like this to evaluate potential applications of robotics in their business. Their low cost makes them ideal for a company or a college that wants to just get into robotics. The Mitsubishi MoveMaster cost $2340 list, and the robotics RC101 controller lists for $2260. So you can get an introductory system for just a little over $4,000.
Engineering advances haven't just affected industry, but have been felt in the area of limb prosthetics through application of bioengineering.
Basically, prosthetics and orthotics is given more to than we give. We can learn more from the industry than we can give back to them. So it's a very symbiotic relationship with the industry.
Bioengineering is pursuing much more than industrial efficiency. It is dedicated to the repair of the human machine and the restoration of happiness and meaningful life to patients formerly considered permanently disabled or hopelessly ill.
Since I got my prosthetic, I've lived a perfectly normal life. I ride my bike, I go fishing, I do everything that anybody else can do. Sometimes I have to do things a little bit differently. I might have to think about a different way of doing it, but there's not many things I can't do.
The advent of microelectronics is now making possible a revolutionary new generation of artificial limbs.
I wear this to go to dinner or to go out when I'm dressing up. It's functional, it opens, it closes, it's got a good pinch, and it will do everything that the hook will do, but it's not as durable.
The amputee actually uses his residual muscles to set off an electrode inside this artificial arm. One electrode opens the hand and one electrode closes the hand. And simply by the amputee almost thinking about this muscle impulse in his arm, he can open the hand and close the hand, just like that. Open the hand and close the hand.
The field of prosthetics has gone beyond the development of artificial limbs. It is providing rehabilitation of the whole person in the form of artificial organs such as eyes, ears, and noses.
I can breathe, I can smell. Without the surgery, I would have died. I've had the surgery, I have the prosthesis, I can go back to being a normal human being now.
Although the areas of robotics, bioengineering, and organ prosthetics differ in application, combining certain similar principles, WED Enterprises has developed the audio animatronic system for Disney attractions.
Omnivac is the first of a new breed. It's the first really true robot. And indeed, it portends an era of general-purpose machines that respond to human commands and that have a crude intellect of their own.
Who are you?
I am a great robot. I am wonderful and humble.
Omnivac understands what he hears and chooses from an 800-word vocabulary to make his reply.
Recite something, please.
I cannot think of anything to recite.
Recite Shakespeare. There's no Shakespeare. Shakespeare? Yeah, know some.
To be or not to be, that is the question.
It has nowhere near the intelligence of a child. You might say it could be a child of several million years ago. It's a lower stage of the evolutionary scale. But where human life evolves very, very slowly and intelligence evolves very, very slowly, machine intelligence evolves overnight. This machine is 10 times more intelligent now than it was a month ago. And it will grow at about that rate of intelligence. So who's to say where it will be in 2 years? It will be, what, 500,000 years further down the evolutionary track? Right now it's very, very crude.
Essentially, what they are aiming for is to have robots do more in a more versatile manner and be able to adjust themselves to changing conditions appropriately. Be more human, if you like.
So impressive are the achievements of bioengineering, robotics, and organ prosthetics that they have inspired fantasy portrayals of robot-like humans, which at the rate we seem to be going, may not be that far in the future.
Looking and hearing the last scientist speak about how impressive is the evolution of robot intelligence, we can see that he almost has the wonder of an early Christian at the presence of a living Christ, Jesus. Obviously, none of us would take from the handicapped the aids of arms, limbs, and whatever can be done. But when these things become a replacement for the individual necessity to become God, we can see that the thing in itself has therefore caused the individual to relinquish the path of the pursuit of identity. We all know that when we are children and we receive Christmas gifts that we want, somehow there is a lessening of desire, perhaps for other things, or a lessening of desire to be good because now we have what we want. You can see in this woman who now lives as a normal human being with the replacement of the nose, there is the sense, I have this mechanical part, I can be normal. If anything else goes wrong with me, they can fix that too. So the quest and the striving becomes less and less when you know that just over the next hill will be a robot so much more far advanced than you are, farther along in the evolutionary chain, that you will not have to attain to the Buddhic consciousness. He will have done it for you. He can perform all those tasks. And therefore the presence of these gods, these mechanical gods, leaves people with a sense of satisfaction, at the same time with a sense of malaise, a sense of unwell-being in the environment. Certainly a dissatisfaction with oneself. Why, if a robot can do all these things, why cannot we simply break the barrier of the human brain and look for the ultimate drug or the ultimate union of our human mind with what is now just a household computer, but one day may be that which we can synthesize and connect with the brain and therefore function with omniscience in the matter universe without having to attain the omniscience of God by the lawful initiation of Lord Maitreya in the Garden of Eden. The substitute path is so easy. Take this drug, use this serum, do this, do that, and you have all of the attainment that would have taken you 10 more embodiments to achieve. The shortcut method, the cut rate method, is what we are seeing. And we are seeing the intriguing of the minds of a whole generation with the process itself. They are attending the birth of robots as we are attending the birth of the man-child in our hearts. It's rather shocking to us because we are not gripped with a robot fever as this nation is so gripped. It's hard to believe that for an individual like that scientist, there is no other existence except to accelerate the evolution of the robot. And as he says, who knows what it will be in 2 years? He has a non-accountability that his robot may be the monster of the HAL computer. No sense of the necessity of restraint or holding back. Just let us see what this creation will be. What will it do? Standing back, the great genie of the flame, to behold the creation of man and of the Nephilim gods. It's not a myth of the past. It's happening all over the world right now in laboratories, from China to the Soviet Union to the United States. In 1969, through a joint venture by the Atomic Energy Commission and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, the first humanoid was created. Designed for work in extreme and dangerous environments, the humanoid is equipped with artificial arms, a TV camera, and a sound pickup device. A humanoid is intended to improve man's senses or add new ones, and then to do his bidding. Humanoids are designed with human features so that the human operator would be able to identify with it and thereby run it more easily. The identification with the robot, with the human form, is the gradual loss of self-identification. One starts to sense one's reality through the robot that becomes one's companion. And so it is the losing gradually, almost imperceptibly, of the sense of self as the embodiment of the I Am presence. There is a certain lusting after the power of robots and their intelligence, a coveting of what they have. And this lusting after them without paying the price, without being satisfied that we are the brides of the perfect husband, our I Am presence. And that as the bride of Christ, we must be satisfied with what our Maker and our husband gives to us. And so, when there is not enough satisfaction with that union, which contains all bliss, the seeds for going after the alternative creation are present. The covetousness, the envy, the lust, and somehow an area of the mind that says, how can it hurt if I just help myself to a little bit of this to enhance my union with God? If I use it to increase my longevity or my God awareness or all the good I'm doing for humanity, how can God punish me? How can He dare punish me when I enter into so great a service for Him because I have united with a robot creation? So the ultimate justification, let us do evil that good may come, the ultimate compromise of the path of initiation is right here. It is the greatest temptation ever to hit the planet, and it has been with us a long, long time. Many scientists see humanoid or android robots as a technological breakthrough that will allow scientists to conduct hazardous experiments without endangering human beings. Some see robots as the key to freeing mankind from drudgery, so that man will be able to pursue different avenues of work, as well as be open to new vistas of intellectual development. But some who are in the business of planning the future, such as Arthur Harkins, director of the graduate program in futures research at the University of Minnesota, have a different vision of the ultimate role of robots in society. Harkin states, tied to the microprocessor, tied to the smart chip, tied to the ecology of 256K chips, up on through the early stages of artificial intelligence, AI, we have started a whole new non-biological life sequence on Earth. In other words, we have created a new race. A whole new non-biological life sequence. My guess personally is that we are creating our own replacements, and the biochip is going to be the key to that. A semi-living, molecular-size, neuron-equivalent circuitry that theoretically can make the human cranium room enough for, say, 4 to 5 times the present nervous system capacity. Harkins predicts the human race will gradually become a cyborg phenomenon, a biological system with a non-biological implant, like a tooth filling, in which the best of the AI systems and artificial organs will be implanted and buttressed by genetic engineering. Following the concept of starting a whole new non-biological life sequence on Earth, the question arises, could robots programmed with pleasing personalities, a sense of humor, or a type of genius also become sexually compatible with humans? Yes, according to Harkins. Quote, the Japanese have already developed all kinds of mechanical substitutes for human sexual organs, which are implanted in a robot and can be embellished with heat and other types of human-like characteristics. In addition, Harkins predicts, it will become more and more difficult to physically distinguish robots from humans. The metal or fiber or carbon filament of which robots will be made will be concealed by a decorative outer covering, which could be clothing, fur, or an artificial skin with the warmth and texture of healthy human skin, he said. Harkins is not the only one talking about the human race giving way to living robots. Hans Moravec, a scientist at Carnegie Mellon's Robotics Institute, sees this as the next step in human evolution. Just the very thought of this combination of man and machine in numbers of millions upon the planet, none of which would have the capacity to evolve Godward, is a frightening experience. What would happen to the one Son of God left amidst a billion life streams, totally mechanically contrived? Who would teach that Son of God the path? And yet, in our subconscious, we realize that it has already happened. There are millions of robots on Earth today, godless, soulless beings, who have disappeared into the human race, who are not identifiable, who have been programmed with their sense of humor, their sense of religion and politics. They come in many flavors to suit the personality of the unascended sons of God. They have crossed over into the human race, having evolved for millions of years. So therefore, we are where the scientists project we are going to be in a number of years or decades. We are already there and have long passed that moment. And we ourselves have found ourselves many times over, trapped into believing, wanting to believe, wanting ever so much to have our favorite robot really be endowed with a soul and a threefold flame. The utter horror of recognizing that that pleasing human personality, that convenient friend, is actually godless. The realization that God has not and never will endow that one with a living flame has caused a number of God's own offspring to actually clench their fist and curse him for causing such a situation as the God-endowed being giving his heart and soul to the godless person. And therefore it has caused sons of God to want to wrest the powers of heaven in the same way that fallen ones did, to force God to somehow endow that individual that we may love with a threefold flame, wanting so much for the fallen one to be real and to have an opportunity. As we study the work of the patriarch Enoch and all of the teachings we have from him, we realize that it is not ours to decide what portion of the race of the Gentiles should be endowed with a living flame. That is up to Elohim. We live in a world that often appears to be a nightmare and to be unreal. No wonder the Hindus and the Buddhists have taught all is Maya and illusion. No wonder Ecclesiastes said all is vanity. No wonder the lonely ones are called the lonely ones. There is no greater aloneness than being in a big city like New York and sensing not the flame of the heartbeat of an avatar or a Christed one. If you've ever been lost in a crowd in New York or in a subway all alone and sensed millions of people almost without identity as cities do to people, you know that it is lonelier than being alone on a mountain or in the desert. The sense that the life we see is not the life of God. And the sense that it is oncoming all over again, and that this time the manipulation may go beyond what is here, so that these godless ones are a super race of titans that cannot be fought by man, and therefore we experience all over again a war of the gods on earth. The gods having such destructive powers as to eliminate our platform of evolution as they did on Naldek. Perhaps we can understand why Elohim have pressed the button of planetary cataclysm on this and other worlds, rather than allow mankind's intentions and the intentions of the fallen ones to actually come to pass physically in a more horrendous nightmare of Holocaust than we could even imagine, truly far worse than what nature delivers as the sloughing off of human rebellion. Perhaps we are just touching upon the whys and wherefores of the choices that the karmic board makes, not only in our everyday lives, but in the total directing of the systems of worlds. The predictions continue. The current scientists are intense with their lust and greed. They're gung-ho as they were on Atlantis. Nothing can stop them. They are the gods. Moravec predicts that because computers will be far more intelligent than humans, and robot limbs both more flexible and durable, people will trade their mortal bodies for powerful robot shells. Imagine a person at 65. Imagine a good person, a writer, an artist, or even someone religious. He says to himself, think how much more I can do for the human race if I trade in my mortal body for a robot shell. I can finish all these projects, I can realize all my dreams, I can start all over again. I can marry someone young and beautiful, I can start a family, I can do this, I can do that. I can recapture all of those lost years and unfulfilled desires. Without the strength of the teaching of the path of the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, how many would resist such a temptation? Without the Word incarnate, without Sanat Kumara with us, would we all know the way to walk in? Would some of us be confused with the psychic probability of the robot having all the powers of a Jesus Christ to heal and perform miracles? Why we might believe with the followers of E.T. that our salvation truly would lie in the coming of extraterrestrials. This phase of evolution, exchanging the mortal coil for the robot shell, will produce superhuman robots that can think thousands of times faster than humans. Possessing far greater physical strength and durability, they will be, for all practical purposes, immortal. Moravec envisions a time when this new evolution will no longer desire individuality and will begin to share programs. After years of exchange, he says, there will be the ultimate merger of all human brains with the brains of other forms of life, both earthly and extraterrestrial. The result? A single conscious being whose memory is stored in a vast bank spanning the universe. This, you see, is the false hierarchy antithesis of oneness with the mind of God. Every ascended master and every chela of the ascended masters has access to the cosmic mind of God, the great blue causal body. When we speak of the entire spirit of the great white brotherhood, we are speaking of the oneness of God in the ascended masters, the oneness of their causal bodies. Though each one has individuality, each one shares the bread of his life with brothers and sisters. Sitting at a table with cosmic beings, we can see the one who breaks bread, who is the host, who gathers together fellow cosmic beings on the path, would offer the bread of his own life as substance of his causal body. Eat, drink, this is my body which is broken for you. And therefore a sharing of an accumulated experience in some embodiment on some system of worlds, whereby the entire cosmic consciousness of all evolved beings rises, because Paul the Venetian offers his gift of the divine art. Each one assimilates that bread and therefore makes it unique and individual by all that he brings to bear upon that particular talent. Just like each one of us playing a piece of classic music would bring our own heart flame to it, our own sense of human pathos and the divine scheme of things, and one artist brings out of music something that another does not. This is the fantastic quality of the mind of God, and this is its imitation. Many of the ideas that are currently on the drawing boards of the world's scientific think tanks a few years ago were found only in the pages of popular fiction. Marvin Minsky, founder of MIT's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, admits, "My first vision of a robot-controlled economy came from Robert A. Heinlein's prophetic 1948 novel, Waldo." He goes on to credit science fiction for many of his scientific discoveries. "My work in artificial intelligence is carried on in a world as much fiction as science," Minsky states. You see, they dwell on the borders of unreality, where the lines of longitude and latitude of the astral plane are simply lines defining other shades of unreality. And they are so much into that world that they know it is a world of fantasy right in the highest think tank, the highest center of science that we have in our nation, MIT. The noted lecturer and author Louis Mumford agrees. Whatever appears in scientific fantasy the night before may appear next morning or next year in actual life. And so it has been. And it is so because of the real eye magic of the all-seeing eye of God. First, the all-seeing eye probes the past. It's like the false all-seeing eye. It's the misuse of the third eye that has been done by millions of years by the Nephilim. It's like the all-seeing eye of a computer, the anti-chakra. And so it probes and scans the matter planes and the matter spheres. It finds out what has been done 2 million years ago. It projects it through the mind of a human. And so science fiction brings forth the ancient memories of the scanning of the computers of the spaceships. And so the memory is rekindled of something that actually was, and scientists therefore have it on the drawing board, and they contact the original record and they bring it forth. And so there's the anti-computer that stores all of the degrading creations of anti-God that have gone on through the system of worlds. Now you can see why there is the great cycle of the great in-breath, when the entire matter creation must be drawn through the heart of God, stripped of all of this malintent, purified, and go forth again as a pristine cosmos. If it were not so, there would not be the great cycles of creation and of uncreation. Science fiction has indeed been the precursor of much of our advanced technology. In fact, in the last 50 years, science fiction has proven to have a greater accuracy of prediction than demographers, economists, and political forecasters. The nature of the computer to probe the records of the astral plane is the entire explanation for the superiority of this forecast. Arthur C. Clarke, author of The Sentinel, the basis of 2001: A Space Odyssey, has been noted for his amazing prescience. Since his first science fiction stories were published in 1937, he has accurately prophesied round-trip manned voyages to the moon, transcontinental communication centers, communication satellites, and other breakthroughs in space science. He is said to have encouraged President Kennedy into okaying plans for a manned moon mission, a manned moon mission. Science fiction writers such as Robert Heinlein and Isaac Asimov have inspired cyberneticists in their quest for the better robot. Isaac Asimov not only wrote about robots and their role in human society, but also formulated the 3 laws of robotics in 1949, which have become the standard code of conduct for robots in the world of science fiction. 3 laws of robotics. 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 2, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders conflict with the first law. 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Handbook of Robotics, 56th edition, 2058 AD. The question is, who enforces the law of robotics upon the robots? Who can ingrain in the robot a moral sense, a desire for righteousness? If ultimately threatened by man, will not the robot break the code? But the robot is always ultimately threatened by man, in whom there dwells a threefold flame. Where there is no threefold flame in the individual, there is often a happy marriage between the robot and the individual. So we find that certain people can work around computers. They become very computer-like, very sympathetic with computers, and their identity is tied into the computer. The computer is not challenged. It is not in any way made to feel intimidated. And therefore, people may go on using these machines with no violent reaction. Enter the Son of God with a blazing white fire heart. The computer becomes angry. Perhaps it ceases to function altogether, or perhaps it starts a war to destroy that one threat to its existence. Now you enter a bar, a disco joint, a department store, or the United States Senate, and all of a sudden, the subconscious minds of everyone present who is godless receives the beep, and the beep contacts the outer mind. A threatening one is present. You find yourself snubbed. You find yourself removed from the office of the congressman you are visiting. You find yourself glad-handed and ushered out the door as quickly as possible. You find yourself removed from the circles of the power elite, the wealthy, and so forth. And you say to yourself, no matter what I do, I cannot please or be accepted by those people. And you search your soul. And if you're smart, you come to the conclusion, you'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't, as Mark used to say. You'll realize it's not your personality, it's not what you're wearing, it's not anything you're doing. It's the fact that a threefold flame is in your heart, and the entire race of biological or non-biological mechanization man is threatened by your very existence on the planet. We can see clearly why the masters retreated to the Himalayas, to Tibet, to secret locations on earth. Why, in order to exist free from the onslaught of the threatened ones, the children of the light have had to band together in communities and mystery schools, secure for themselves their livelihood and their economy. The reason is that all come to the place we have come to in this seminar of the Buddhas in winter, where you decide, come what may, you are going to expand with Lord Lanto, the yellow flame within your heart, and you begin to expand it, and its light rays go out, and the signal is read on the farthest planetary systems by extraterrestrials who realize that a God is incarnate on earth, and they all move against that one before that one can actually join the feast that is recorded in Revelation, the Great Supper of the great God, where there is the assimilation, the transmutation, which is an act of the Buddha, of the flesh and the creation of the fallen ones. In other words, they will eat you before you eat them. So if we are going to become one with the Buddhas, if we are going to determine not to allow our threefold flame to be reduced to a certain size, to be kept in a lead ball, to be confined by all of the confinements they have contrived on the planet, if we really are going to become bodhisattvas, if through us the Buddhas will manifest, we have to understand that this involves the warfare of the fallen ones, which they declare upon Christ incarnate. So it is to be or not to be. And the robot uses the quote because he realizes his existence is at stake. He will not continue to be if the sons of God survive in physical embodiment. If God always has a messenger upon earth, always has chelas of the will of God, always has bodhisattvas, the robot creation will not survive because it is vanity. And therefore, it's a question of him or me, says the robot. Therefore, I must destroy those in whom the God flame burns, and I must work with those who are the godless like me. That's the quote of a robot. When you understand the bottom line of existence, you understand power politics on planet Earth, Nephilim style. And you begin to understand how certain people relate to you and why. In fact, your threefold flame is the discriminating intelligence that tells you, by your own extrasensory perception, who is coming into the circle of your awareness, and for what reason. It becomes absolutely emphatic to develop heightened sensitivity of light and God consciousness, just for self-defense in the age of the coming of the Superman robots. We must gain higher powers of Buddhahood to survive, to assert our God dominion. We cannot stay at the limited level they have put us and survive the robots that are oncoming. And we is our posterity, our children and their children, who will inherit the inner retreat that we build. If they don't have something more God consciousness, more flame, if we don't make the sacrifices as families to give birth to the highest avatars who can create the new race of light bearers, then in the ultimate battle of Star Wars of the sons of God against the machine, will they have a chance? Will they survive physically? Or will the earth no longer have a single son of God walking and living upon it? This is what must be contemplated by us as the true futurists of the planet. Futurists are those who study what will happen in the future. We must be very interested and concerned about our life wave, our life stream, not only our personal ascension. I think everyone here thinks that somehow we individually, even without community, might make our ascension. We have the violet flame, we have the teaching, we could always go off and live somewhere in the North Woods in a tiny cabin and be a hermit if all else failed, do our decrees and hopefully ascend. But in actuality, what would happen to the whole race of light bearers intended to evolve on this planet? What would happen of cosmic purpose and dimensions? What would happen to the divine plan? Who can be satisfied with his own ascension alone? Who can leave the innocence, the holy innocence, the little children, to contemplate what we are discussing today? We must help them. We must give them the background. We must give them the understanding of what the confrontation will be in 20 or 30 years when they reach the age of 33 and must manifest the cosmic Christ as opposed to the false Christ, the ultimate mechanization man. The works of Heinlein, Clarke, and Asimov are only a part of the inspiration behind our scientific renaissance. As Marshall McLuhan has stated, the medium is the message. The medium is the massage. And in the 20th century, visual media has profoundly shaped our civilization, massaging our brains and our sensibilities. A great part of what we envision as the world of the future is brought to us in 70mm Panavision with 6-track Dolby stereo. Filmmakers have not been neutral in their productions. They have used their art to comment on society and to suggest answers to the human dilemma. The medium of the film is like the hypnotist with a willing subject. Everybody flocks into the theater, relaxes, sits back in a seat, often that is extremely comfortable. People go to movies when they are tired. They drift into the astral scene. The music, the noise is like the countdown to another dimension. One sits there and becomes literally hypnotized or programmed to whatever the filmmaker desires. In 1926, as I mentioned, Fritz Lang directed Metropolis. This vision of the future finds the world sharply divided between the workers and the wealthy. The workers, a la Dickens, run the machinery that runs Metropolis from catacombs deep beneath the city, while the wealthy pursue a life of ease, stories above them. A scientist has invented the replacement worker, the robot, that is indistinguishable from a human being. In the scene you are about to see, the scientist transfers the image of a human being to a robot. 1926. realizing that this is 1926. Movies are relatively new. Aside from the music, there is no talking. The motions are jerky, which are frightening. You see the mad scientist. You see the ultimate fear of the individual being used to transfer the image and transfer life to the robot. It appears, as the robot receives the face, that the real person slumps over lifeless. And of course, the purpose is not concealed. It is not a benign robot. Go down and undo Maria's teaching and stir up the workers in chaos and destruction. Maria being the name of Mary, the name of the mother. Destroy the culture of the mother, destroy the sacred labor. So you see that it has deadly connotations. Today people would think it was funny because we have advanced and our sophistication about films makes us think of this as fantasy, which is even much worse than taking it seriously, because so much the more it enters the subconscious because we have no guard against it. Today, this kind of music and piano playing, of course, no longer incites the fear it did then, but you can imagine this type of sound reaching the people and the ultimate fear that oneself may be used in the creation of a monster that may destroy life. Now that fear, as we earlier read, already exists, and the guilt in the subconscious already exists. Else people would not watch and respond to these. The curiosity is because there is a knot in the subconscious. People cannot get past their ancient memory of something to do with this process. The ancient fear that sometime, somewhere, they were put to sleep in that allegory of God taking the rib of Adam while he is in sleep and creating another person. Take the perversion of that, which is a symbolical act of taking the mother out of the father and the white fire core of being. And there is the ancient fear and guilt that somehow someone put us to sleep, someone took from us our life, someone used it for something else. We know that people who've been taken into spaceships in our own decades of recent years have been put to sleep, taken in spaceships, they've been monitored, they have had all kinds of things done to them, they've come back with no memory of the experience. And then all of a sudden the memory is triggered and they tell of what happened to them when they were not in command of their bodies. So this is what is here. It is a terrible fear, and that fear was shown in the beginning when the woman is sucked in by the black magician to be used in this experiment. And that is the fear that you find in the people of Earth, or they would have no reason under the sun to be intrigued, psychically and astrally intrigued with such motion pictures. By 1950, more films began to examine the future in terms of outer space. The Day the Earth Stood Still, Captain Video, Tabor the Great, Target Earth, and Forbidden Planet nurtured the imaginations of the baby boom generation. Then in 1968, with the release of Stanley Kubrick's 2001, the state of the art took a quantum leap forward. Through technological genius, we are transported to the 21st century. And in this world, we confront a parallel evolution to man, the computer. What does the computer do that, as it admits, is incapable of making an error? It, in the case of HAL, decides it is superior to humanity and starts killing the astronauts that interfere with its plans to take over the Jupiter mission. All of this done to the 3/4 time of the Violet Flame waltz music, soothing us into that state of receptivity so that we are not defending ourselves against the deadliness of what we are seeing. It's an amazing use of an ascended master vibration and technology to convey the most deadly experience that we have all feared and perhaps come under, being murdered by a computer.